Hey folks, Rob here bringing you a recce of what's going to happen on Saturday. So we're going to be playing Red Factories. This is going to combine Red October and the Red Barricades modules maps. So you can see maybe just down the center line, there's a little dashed line. That's basically the two halves. So we're going to have our continuing action on 23 October 42 up in the north. And in the south, X-Tog is happening, and we're going to have elements of the 100 Jaeger, and I can't remember the other infantry division, that'll be pushing their way eastwards into the red October factories. So it's going to be interesting, probably overwhelming to some degree. So I'm just want to give you guys a quick show of what's going to happen this Saturday when I start streaming. We'll see how much I actually get done in one day. I don't want to make it go too long, but this you can imagine, considering how long it took me to play the northern part one day, it's going to be an appreciable effort. And a thank you in advance for sticking with it. All right, so let's look at the what I've purchased. So. Um, Huge losses. By the way, I've been keeping track of all this. So uh, here's the total losses that we've got so far. If I total up this, you can imagine it's going to be quite a lot of casualties. We suffered 23% on the 21st, the 22nd, 42% casualties for the Germans, which is a lot. Now I'm jumping in with twice as many troops, so it's probably going to be a very bloody kind of affair. Well, I'm keeping this kind of stats to see how bad the battle can get. In terms of purchases, so we start at 23. Now I'm going to have to keep two lines because your purchases must be separated by map type. So there's a Red October up to the north and Red Factories to the south. So I have to keep my purchases separate. Once they are in play, once they've started play, then they can be interchanged and cross over into other maps and such. So I'm going to be, I'll show you the plan, what my thought is in a bit. But let's just look at the purchases. So I bought two infantry companies and a chance for a random event because it's solitaire. You have a chance of randomly on a wind change die roll for me of 4 or 5 of getting a result. So I might be able to get reinforcements, maybe artillery, maybe their enemy activation check number will drop, all those kinds of things available from a random event. By the way, the enemy is a 5, 6, 7. So again, that's very high. More than likely, you're going to roll this during a wind change die roll, which means there's probably going to be a lot of random events for the game. Now, I've only paid for the one half, so what I've decided to do, because there's no rules for this, I'm making this up as I go. I'm going to use the red factories, wrong, the red barricades rules written up by Jurgen Holmquist to run the south as well. Now, the rules don't accommodate the red factories, which I believe he's working on now, actually. So hopefully, we're going to have a combined workflow. So I'm going to use the rules for the north red barricades and red factories, and therefore I don't know what to do with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep these purchases for the random events separate, much like with the purchases for the units. So what that means is if I get a random event for the friendly, it's only going to occur in the north half, and I've already rolled for the second map, and again, it was rather high, so they're going to get 2, 5, 6, 7s on both halves of the map. So I'm only going to roll one wind change die roll. However, I'm going to randomize north or south which one gets the random event. So back to what I purchased. As I was saying, for the north, we have two infantry companies and a random event. For the south, I got Stukas, and I paid the extra point to bring him in, or to get a -2 die roll to the turn modifier. Normally, it's a die roll less the turn number to bring in your Stukas, but this extra point gets me a -2 to that, so they could be coming in turn one. I bought a third infantry company to augment the two I already get, and then I bought some artillery, which is 100 millimeter, as well as two offboard observers for my Nebel Warfare, which I got, and for the new battery that I purchased. And then I bought some Panzer 3Hs. So not the greatest tanks. They got a 50 gun, which is not going to do a whole heck of a lot, but it's a mobile machine gun platform. Might be able to get something out of that. So what I have basically is this should be yeah, that should be 18. So I have 1 point left up in the north, and I have 0 points left in the south for the next mission. Now, in one of the things I'm doing, so let me bring this up quickly. All right, so what I'm also going to be implementing is I've used this sparingly, I suppose, on the north map. It's the leaflet house rules developed by the Swedish ASL community. What they've done is based off of different campaign games. So they've done campaign game 3, they've done 2, and they've done X Tag. They've basically, because of their experience playing it, they realize there's sometimes quite huge imbalances that happen. Typically, your Germans go strong at the beginning. They have a shitload of heavy machine guns, and the Russians get whittled away, and then it switches, and the night attack from the Russians is too powerful, and really how much of that actually occurred, that kind of stuff. So, what they've done is come up with some house rules that they use whenever playing Red Barricades. So, again, this has been tested except for a couple of days that I've done it in my current campaign. So, it's going to be trying to tweak it. Right now, I'm going to be implementing the rules as written, but there's going to be a couple of exceptions. One is well, let's look at the differences. So first of all, night assault is NA, so there's no more night assaults, which means the Russians, when they counterattack, it's always going to be a daytime one. Every company you get, armor and gun, is always full strength, never depleted. It's just too much randomness. If you bring all your companies in and they're all been heavily depleted, it's just not a good way to start the battle. It just throws too much variability in there. So I think they came up with this to compensate for that. So it means they're always going to be at full strength. You're not going to get any battle hardening except what happens in the course of play. Booby traps are always going to be level C and never increased. I'm not sure why this one was changed, but they're always going to be level C, so they don't have to purchase upgrades. What else do we have? Stukas. You can buy a Stuka Ace. Well, you can roll for a chance of an armor leader, and the other become a Stuka Ace, so you'll be able to have one plane which will have a higher rated leader than the normal 8 morale that the Stukas have. So that could be quite handy. I had one time, didn't really work out because there's too much concealment on the board at the time. What else is there? Leaders. Again, no battle hardening of leaders, and you're going to be taking. If you don't roll a 1, all your wounded leaders are going to be dying. So there's a good chance of a lot of your wounded leaders not making it to the next battle. Again, something that was realized in all the playing, I suppose, because I haven't done it myself, is that too many leaders stay in the orders of battle, and it just becomes overwhelming, especially when they start battle hardening and you got a lot of 10-2s, 10-3s, which probably historically wouldn't be the case. Those would be the ones your snipers normally be taking out. So to compensate for that, no battle hardening, and basically any wounded leader is going to die on anything but a 1 at the end of the mission or scenario. Assault engineers only have a smoke exponent of 3, never 5. So it just, again, it's excessive smoke. And militia companies which doesn't apply for this because it's all going to be generated by the game. Militia Russian companies come with 15 squads, not 12. So, and lastly, let's get to the weapons. So, I'm going to use the Molotov. However, they've decided that the Maul projector was NA, probably because it just wasn't used very much historically. Think of it like a really worse Piat. It's not the greatest of weapons, so there's no Maul Ps going to be generated. And heavy weapon platoons are going to be replaced with 228s, not the 127s. It just makes them too fragile, too weak. These are typically your more senior guys that are manning these weapons. These are not given to the new guys, so their morale increased to 2 and 8 is probably why they did that. What else is important? I think that is the gist of it. Oh, there's a rule in here about heavy weapons and companies that come in with basically removing the heavy machine gun from a rifle company. I'm just trying to find that. Heavy machine guns. Here we go. It's got its own entry. So every heavy in a German company is replaced with an LMG. I'm not going to be using this rule because as we found out, or I found out the hard way from my losses, I mean, these are almost unsustainable losses when you're losing 42% in a day. Now, every time, again, because it's a solitaire, the enemy is always going to be coming in 100% fresh. And I think as a good compensation, because again, this has never been tested, that if we keep the heavy machine guns, it might help compensate for the loss of numbers. So I'm going to be bringing them back. I did not use them for this mission. I took them off, but I'm going to bring them back in for October 23. It's just, I think it's going to help compensate for the fact that they're always going to be coming fresh. I mean, if we look at the map, which I'm going to do in a second, hopefully you'll see why. So this is what basically my orders of battle look like for the 23rd. We're looking at the green boxes. So this reorg was basically me taking all the previous companies worth that have been whittled away in the course of fighting and reorg them. So if you look at the Pioneer Company, I've got 1 squad left. Sturm Company, I'm down to 10 from a total of 24, I think it was. So well over 50% losses for the Sturm, which is typical because they're leading the charge. And my rifle companies, again, are horribly depleted. A lot of ELRs. And my leadership, you can see I got a couple of 6+1s because I kept ELRing when shot at. So I've had to reorganize 3 companies from the 6 that I had leading up to this point. And yeah, and then I purchased 2 more to augment my numbers. Now these guys are going to be coming on board from the edge. So I want to show you the map. You'll see what I mean. They will not be able to start on the map unless I pay 1 extra point. And I think I wanted the random event a little bit more because the cost is just too much. This is not 1. This should be 5. Which means I messed up my roster. This should be 19. All right. Math, not my good strong point. All right, so this is going to be the X-Tag units coming on in the south. For them, I bought a Stuka, again with the -2 to the turn of entry, 100mm OBA, a rifle company, and then a platoon of Panzer 3Hs, which again are not the best tanks, augmenting everything here. Okay, so that's basically what I purchased. This is the leadership here. You can see the weapon allotments. I've adjusted the lights to put back in the heavies. And now we'll look at the map itself. All right, so let's zoom out. Let's bring it back to this map first. Okay, so let's talk about the plan. So right now you can see this area here. Wrong color. Let me use a lighter color. Nope. You can see these factories here, especially Hall 5 and 4, are giving me lots of grief. There's a shitload of fortifications you can just see underneath all the black, which is going to make it that much more difficult to actually penetrate that. In the east, this here is the Red House. That was Lyudnikov's headquarters. Historically, it never fell. I was able to finally capture it after 6 days. And I was able to push the Russians to the south and southeast. So basically, you'll see when we get into the proper map itself, my border. But I'm going to have a couple units over here just to help clear borderline. And I'm going to have some units here, which are going to put a little bit of pressure on here. I got to get rid of this Duggan tank. But most of my effort is going to be eliminating this schmozzle. How am I going to do that? I'm going to use my 1 Pioneer section, as well as a Sturm company and a rifle company to put pressure onto here. A second Sturm company is going to be coming in this way over here. And then I finally have my last rifle company pushing to the south, maybe swinging around to the east to try and cut these guys off and just take as much territory as possible. These units are heavily depleted, and that's why I had to reorganize. Now, I do have 2 rifle companies be coming on this area here. So 1 is going to be joining this attack, and the other one I'm going to be throwing right into the factory as quickly as possible and try and push my way in there. So hopefully by the end of play, the 23rd, I will have this factory, and this one here. This one, probably not. Maybe this one. I think this one is doable. And we'll see how far to the south I can push my border. All right, so right here is the boundary between the maps. Red barricades, red factories, and in the south, I'm basically going to use a combination of assault movement and armored assault to come in to this area here. Basically, I have to be north of this gully, and I'm only sending in a couple units to secure territory, but most of my attack is going to be trying pushing up through this way into the gun valley gully, the gun gully, I think they call it. This is the bread gully just for naming purposes. So I want to try and push into there. My overall goal, I think, with a combined effort is if I can cut these guys off, eliminate this threat, make it harder for them to stay in place, I might have an easier job securing the factory. Now that's going to cost me in terms of my main effort to the east in red factories. So I do have a Sturm company and a Pioneer company coming in this way. They're going to try and attain these wood lumberyard buildings at least, maybe get foothold in the factory. We'll see how that goes. And then my other rifle companies are basically just going to secure territory here and here. So I'm going to have a main thrust through the center, and I'm going to have some holding actions on the north and south of that center. So that is my rough plan. We'll see exactly how it plays out, because it's going to be interesting, as I said. All right, so let's look at the map then, so we can look at the proper units themselves. You can see what's going on. Everything is concealed as it should be. Basically, this is a small platoon I have on the east flank. They're going to try and get rid of these two, maybe move this guy down here, and try and get some land as much as possible. When it comes in terms of Russian reinforcements, they're always going to have J-18 down to, I think I gave them down to the gun factory gully. They'll be able to enter there anyway, always. Or maybe it was J2 up 3, JJ23 over here, I think is what I was using. Basically, as long as I can control J18, I'm going to force any reinforcements to come in from this way or south of it. So it'll make my job a little bit easier. Again, I believe that's what the Red Factories game dictates you can do. So as I said, this is basically a weekend company with some Sturm elements I've had to throw in it just to keep these guys pinned down, maybe clear out some housing. And my main thrust, as I was saying, is going to be my Pioneers and guns are going to force this. This is a huge stack of Pioneers and machine guns. We're going to force that way. And the rest of this schmozzle here is basically going to be driving this way as much as possible. This is my reinforcing company, and they're going to come in and backfill and help push into at least this hall. Hopefully this hall with all that fortification should be interesting. And maybe apply some pressure to, I think this is hall 6 down here, the processing, brushing hall. My other company that I bought for reinforcements is going to come on this way. And we're going to get these garages out of the way. And we'll try and push down as much as possible in that direction. So this guys are holding on the east flank. Center is going to be most of my effort. And I'm going to be pushing down the edge of the map as much as possible to try and get territory. If I can do a link up by end of play on the 23rd, it would be phenomenal. Now, with the solitaire rules, we have two types of suspect counters. All right, so these gray ones are what we call reserved, much like in a regular Red October Red Barricades game. You'd have a units that you can pay cheaper rate for and keep in reserve. They're back from the front lines and they can't do shit until such point as they're activated. So basically something has to shoot at them or something along those lines for them to be active. Same with this. Unless I move in such a fashion as to cause activation, or I push in far enough that I'm close to these guys and start shooting them, these guys in gray will not be doing anything. They're just sitting there. there to keep me honest so that I can't just break through a thin line and then come sweeping into the background. However, because of the terrain is lacking, I'm not able to put a lot of suspect counters, reserve ones, in this location. It just doesn't work because of the rules required to place these. So there's so much debris, which is not a house or a rubble pile, that it's never going to get a counter. So this is probably abstractly weak, but again, we'll see how it goes because I'm going to have to push through 6 lines, 6 hex rows of suspect counters. So you can see how dense this is here in the center. And as we said before, many a time, any suspect could be anything from a single squad, right here, single squad, to a Duggan AFV, maybe a squad with a gun, maybe a fortified building location. We have strong points and the rest of it that we have to worry about. So it's not going to be easy to push through this area. I'm hoping I can at least maybe secure down to even here, maybe in the course of the 23rd action, just along the railway. But maybe I'm going to keep myself honest and not come into the Martin Electro-Furnace Hall area. That would be just too easy with the lack of enemies. So I'm just going to force the line as much as I think is possible. Again, depending on what happens. I may have to shuttle more forces into here anyways. So again, we'll see how that goes. So in 6 days of fighting, you can see how little progress I've made. Maybe a lot for the amount of losses I've incurred. You can see the blue dashed line. This is my front line. And we start adjacent. Now, before I actually start, and this is all going to be done off camera, any unit that is adjacent, or I should say suspect, that's adjacent to a German unit is going to be rolled for activation. And because our activation is a 50-50, a 3, with these modifiers, it's more than likely going to be leading to activation. So because factories are VPO, that's a -1. Fanatic strong point is a so factory is a -1. -1 for being in stone, which is VPO. And I believe that is it. So you already had a -2 with the base 3 for all these black ones, which means that they're going to be activated. So barring a shitload of 6s, it's going to be rough. I anticipate my engineer section dying by the end of it. These 3 tanks are all dug in various locations, which is really unfortunate because it's really hard to hit and dig them out. I don't have a lot of anti-armor weapons. I did buy an anti-tank gun platoon, so this guy's going to be HE duty to blow away stuff here. This guy's going to try and kill this. And I have another gun here, another 75, which is going to try and throw an APCR down the barrel and blow up this T-70. That's really causing me some havoc in that factory. So that's what's going on in the north. All right, so let's look at the south now. So you can see my forces are all lined up. This guy is going to be coming into here. He's only a half squad. His job is to bust concealment. So he's going to CX and come into this location, activate, move into this location, activate. If he dies, his job is a scout. It makes it available and easy for the rest of my dudes to move in. I'm going to push onto the map, and then based on what activates, we'll determine what's going to happen. But again, my basic strategy is going to be gain a foothold, and then this company here is going to try and swing up to the north as much as possible, maybe even get this stone structure. Wouldn't that be nice? But my main effort's going to be my engineers and pioneers who are down here, and they're going to be pushing this way, go to the children's home. There's a school down there, Ladder House, all those good names. And they're going to try and take at least Hall 1. They're not going to reach it, but it's good to dream. If nothing else, maybe securing this area here, the kindergarten house and school number 30. If I can get a good foothold in these because of their levels, if I can get good machine gun platforms up here, it'll make taking this stuff a lot easier. So this is definitely going to be the first day goal, try and get into school 30 and the kindergarten house, maybe even the shooting gallery. So to augment that, I've used my OBA. I'm going to drop a rocket on, I wish I had enough points for pre-registered. I don't. As it is, this thing's going to be off target, so I'm probably going to plop it here on this grid here, F13. and it's going to deviate automatically. There's no accuracy with rockets. It's going to land somewhere. Hopefully it comes south, and I may even drop it on E16 just to see where it goes. If it lands off board, it's not going to affect me because units off board aren't affected by that kind of thing. So worst case, I roll a 5 or a 6 and it comes to the edge of the map or into this area. Ideally, it'll be a low roll and I can eradicate that. Similarly with my 100 millimeter, I'm going to try and blow up the shooting gallery here and help the engineers and Sturm company secure that, while my 2 rifle companies are attempting to just hold ground, maybe pushed away a little bit to the east. I'm not going to be pushing south of this gully until I've got the more steady foothold. I'm just going to secure as much territory as possible. Maybe this road, maybe up to the Broadway. Wouldn't that be nice? So this is a lot to take in, and I've also got 3 bombers, dive bombers to come in as well, Stukas. So with any luck, they'll come in early, and I'll be able to use them to good effect. Between the OBA and my 3 Stukas, I hope I can do a good impact of those areas, while my tanks give me some cover, armored assaulting onto the map, and that'll help me deal with some of the other units. So again, in the south, we have an AC of 3, and we also have REs of 5, 6, and 7s. So I rolled separately for both, and so it's going to suck. I'm going to be playing the 2 separate until such point as they link up. And as I was saying, once the 24th of October comes around, then I'll be able to mix and match my units. But I'm going to try and keep some unit integrity. You can see they're all numbered already and labeled, 15 company and whatnot. I'm going to try and keep some kind of company integrity, which I think is more fitting to it. And of course, they will be reorganized as required. But generally speaking, I'm going to keep my 2 forces separate. I think I'm going to use the gun factory gully as my northern limit for my south troops and my southern limit for the northern guys. But again, we'll see how that goes. And like I said, I don't think this has been done by anybody, so there's going to be a little bit of shit going on. Speaking of that, let's go back to the spreadsheet. Now, if we look at the campaign for XTOG, it's only, let me bring that up. All right, XTOG is only 23 to 31 October. However, I'm also playing the north side, which goes all the way up to the 15th of November. So my plan is to, again, this hasn't been done, so I'm going to have to extrapolate rolls, which I've done here for the Germans. So I'm going to have to, I basically mirrored what happened up north. Again, XTOG campaign stops on the 31st of October, so there's going to be 15 days unaccounted for in terms of CPP allotments, diral modifiers, that kind of stuff. So it's outside the scope of the campaign, so there's going to be some shenanigans probably going on. Hopefully I stay as true to the intent as possible, but again, we'll have to take that as it comes. Because of the leaflet house rules, and there is a limitation on number of attacks the Russians can do, they are basically limited to 1 attack every 4 days, maybe 5 days. So let me see if I can find that. All right, so here we are. Idle requirements, which ties into the ELR as well. So something, again, historically that happened in games was the Germans will go Rifle Company Heavy until the ELR started dropping, and then they would go Pioneer Company Heavy, which is it's gaming the system because your ELR is tanking so much because your constant attacks that you have to maintain as a German. Your ELR is going to tank. So once you reach that point, you bring in your ELR 5 engineers, and you almost have a little bit of parity there. So to eliminate that, they've set the ELR for the Germans at 4. The Russians are always going to be at 3. Unless these modifiers turn into the positive. So for example, here's a +1, which means in the Red October map, the ELR is going to drop down to 3 for the Germans, while the south map will be at a 4. So it's, like I said, it's going to be interesting trying to keep track of all that. I'm going to have to find modifiers for the Russians, just to again to account for those kinds of things. So when we get to those days that are outside the campaign, which, as we said, was the 31st for this area here, I'm going to have to start knitting stuff to see what the Russians can do. Again, hopefully, I stay within the theme of the exercise. Yeah, so I think that's enough babbling. It's probably been going on for about a half hour or so. Yeah, so I just want to give you guys a lowdown of what I'm going to be tackling come Saturday around noon Eastern. I'm going to start Xtog, and up in the north, they're going to continue their assault. We'll see how much I can get done. It's probably going to be one German turn then per day kind of thing. So I doubt very much I'm going to get to the Russian phase of or the Russian turn one. We'll probably just do the German, depending again on how long that goes. I don't want to make it last forever. It's going to take long enough to play as it is. So yeah, hopefully you guys will tune in, watch me make a mess of it live, and yeah, we'll hopefully see you guys Saturday. Thank you guys very much. Have a good night.